Undercover CEO found a maid crying over an unpaid hospital bill. What happened next changed everything. The basement of the Grand Royal Hotel was a world beneath the glitter. Dim lights flickered above grimy tiles, casting shadows over spinning washers. The thrum of machinery echoed off damp walls, and the sharp scent of detergent hung in the air like a second skin. Upstairs, chandeliers sparkled over champagne flutes. Down here, among stained linens and silence, lived a different kind of truth. One of exhaustion, quiet struggle, and survival. Just 2 floors apart. 2 entirely different worlds. In the far corner of the laundry room, Linda sat curled against the wall, knees tucked to her chest. Only 26, but the hollow look in her eyes belonged to someone who had lived far too much pain. Blonde hair clung in strands around her pale face, dulled by sleepless nights and unrelenting labor. Her uniform hung loose, wrinkled, barely held together. The air buzzed with bleach and heat, but Linda did not move. She clutched a folded paper tightly to her chest, her fingers trembling. Her breath came shallow and tense, as if letting it out too quickly would make her unravel. It was a hospital bill. Her daughter, Judy, just 4 years old, had been born with a heart defect. Surgery was urgent. The cost was impossible. Linda had lost her parents in a car crash when she was 17. The man who promised forever left as soon as he learned she was pregnant. Since then, every step had been uphill, but this bill, it was a wall she could not scale. Hands shaking, she dialed the last number she had the courage to try, her aunt. "Please," she whispered when the call connected. "Just a little help. Alone." "Judy's surgery," her aunt's voice was flat. "Linda, I've got my own kids. I can't keep helping you." "I'm not asking for much," Linda said, trying to hold herself steady. "Just enough to keep the surgery scheduled. I'll pay you back." "I'm sorry," her aunt said, "but I can't do this anymore." The line went dead. Linda stared at the phone. The silence rang louder than the machines. She did not cry, at least not at first. She simply sank further into herself. Her body began to tremble. "I'm sorry, Judy," she whispered. "Mommy's so sorry." Then the tears came. The bill lay across her lap, numbers glaring. $50,000, 0 cents. A warning printed in red. Payment required by Friday to confirm surgical scheduling. It was Tuesday. She crumpled the bill in her hands, then slowly smoothed it out again. Even now, she couldn't bring herself to tear it. It was the last thread of hope she had left. Just outside the laundry room, footsteps paused. A man in a Navy Moon maintenance uniform held a toolbox. He stopped mid-step, hearing muffled sobs behind the door. It was Michael Reeve, CEO of the luxury hotel chain. Undercover again as Mike, a maintenance worker, he was here to evaluate staff and conditions before making decisions about the struggling property. He leaned closer, drawn by the sound. Through a small crack in the door, he saw her. A woman, small and still, clutching a piece of paper like it was all she had left. She didn't know anyone was watching. She wasn't asking for help. She was just breaking. Michael stood frozen. His job had always been about logic, structure, efficiency, but something about the quiet way she fell apart, without anger, without noise, got to him. She had no idea he was there. And still, she straightened herself, wiped her tears, adjusted her hair with trembling fingers, and stood tall, like no one had seen her crumble. Michael turned and walked away, but he carried the image with him, her strength, her silence, her pain. That night, her voice echoed in his thoughts. "That was the first time I saw a woman cry, not for herself, but for the tiny heart slowly fading inside her daughter's chest." Michael Reeve was 35 years old, and the kind of man people whispered about in boardrooms. Polished, calculated, decisive. The youngest CEO in the company's history. Years ago, when the hotel chain faced bankruptcy, it was Michael who made the impossible call, downsizing departments, eliminating overhead, and streamlining operations. It was not heartless, it was survival. and he had never apologized for saving thousands of jobs by letting go of hundreds. Efficiency, he believed, was not cruelty, it was clarity. He had just returned from his first real vacation in years when a report landed on his desk. The Grand Royal, one of the smaller properties, was flagged for potential closure. Revenues were down, customer satisfaction lagging, and operational costs rising, a familiar formula, but something made him hesitate. He chose not to send a team of consultants. Instead, he pulled out a faded maintenance uniform, shaved the stubble, and took a red-eye flight. He wanted to see for himself, unfiltered, unscripted, before making a decision that would ripple through dozens of lives. Before seeing her, he was confident in what he would find. Michael had long believed that emotions were liabilities. They clouded reason, blurred judgment. He had heard enough stories over the years, employees pleading, crying, justifying. He had trained himself to see beyond them, to look only at data, performance, outcomes. Numbers did not lie, but people often did. Then, in the dim light of the laundry room, he saw a woman crumpled beside a pile of towels, clutching a hospital bill like it was all she had left in the world. She did not complain, she did not beg, she simply broke, alone, and thought no one saw her. That image would not leave him. The next day, Michael quietly changed his room assignment to a suite on the same floor Linda worked. He told no one, just observed. She was always on time. She never lingered longer than necessary, never checked her phone during shifts. When another maid dropped her cart in the hallway, Linda rushed over to help without a word. When an elderly guest tried to tip her after she cleaned his room, she gently declined, smiling politely, and said, "I just want you to be comfortable, sir." Michael scribbled into his small black notebook, "Refuses tips, smiles when tired, consistent, quiet." It was unlike anything he had expected. No signs of resentment, no victimhood. One night, around midnight, as he walked past the linen storage room, he heard the lock click shut from inside. Curious, he waited. No one else was around. The next morning, Linda appeared on schedule, her uniform neat, her blonde hair pulled back into a tidy bun. But her eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights, and beneath them, shadows that no makeup could hide. Michael wrote again. Sleeping at the hotel? Why? No apartment? His thoughts, once firm, began to scatter. She was not part of a failing department. She was not a line on a spreadsheet. She was real, and somehow he could not treat her like all the others. He found himself lingering at her station longer, watching her work from a distance. At first, he told himself it was just research, understanding ground-level operations. But deep down, he knew it was not about the hotel anymore. It was about the woman who had no idea he was the one holding her future in his hands. For the first time in his career, Michael did not want to make a decision based on efficiency. He wanted to know what she had been through, why she slept in a storage room, why she smiled despite everything, who she was beyond the uniform and the silence. He closed his notebook that night and sat by the window, staring out into the city. I came here to close down a hotel, he thought. But maybe I just opened something else entirely. The storage room was never meant to be lived in. The air was thick with detergent, and the constant hum of the nearby water heater gave it a restless pulse. But in the far corner, just beside a stack of clean towels, lay a thin mattress, folded neatly every morning and unfurled again each night. This was where Linda slept. There was no pillow, only a bundled sweatshirt. Her suitcase, faded and worn, doubled as a table. A single hook on the wall held her most treasured possession, a tiny, crinkled photo of a little girl with soft curls and the brightest smile. Beneath it, scrawled in childish handwriting, were the words, "Just a little more, Mommy." Each night before closing her eyes, Linda would stare at that photo, as if drawing strength from it, as if Judy's smile could hold back the dark. One evening, after her shift, Linda slipped quietly into the storage room. She locked the door behind her, sank onto the mattress, and pulled out her old phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked, barely. The video call rang twice before connecting. "Hi, my love," she whispered. Judy's small face lit up the screen. Her voice, soft and a little breathless, came through. "Mommy, my heart hurts again, but I remembered what you said. I'm breathing slow, see?" Linda blinked back tears. "You're so brave, sweetheart, so strong. I'm proud of you." Judy smiled faintly. "Will the doctor fix it soon?" Linda nodded, her voice trembling. "Very soon. Just a little more, okay? We're almost there." They stayed like that for a while, mother and daughter, separated by miles but bound by love that nothing could sever. "I love you to the moon," Linda said. "To the moon and all the stars," Judy replied, drowsy now. After the call ended, Linda held the phone to her heart and exhaled. Her daughter had no idea her mother was sleeping in a room with no windows, no warmth, only willpower. Later that week, Michael was checking the building's old electrical panel when he noticed the back closet door slightly ajar. Curious, he stepped in and accidentally kicked something, a suitcase. He bent down, intending to move it, but when it tipped open, a few items spilled out. A set of children's clothes and a folded letter, yellowed at the edges. Michael reached for it, paused, then read, "To my love. You left us too soon, but I promise, I'll do everything I can. I will protect our daughter, I will be her strength. I will carry the weight of both our hearts." He folded the letter slowly, carefully, and returned it to its place. His face was unreadable, but his eyes lingered on the mattress in the corner, the tiny space that spoke volumes. That night, without a word, he began leaving a cup of warm tea in the employee break room, right by the time Linda's shift ended. The next evening, an extra dinner box appeared in the staff fridge, marked with no name but always the same, chicken soup and a slice of bread. He began calling her in to clean his room more frequently, even when it was barely used. And each time he left a tip folded neatly under the lamp. Always generous, always anonymous. Linda started to notice the pattern. One day, after finding a second cup of chamomile tea waiting on the counter, she paused in the hallway and glanced back toward the direction of the maintenance rooms. Mike was different. Unlike others, he never asked why she looked tired, never commented on her hollow eyes or rushed steps. He never pried, but he saw. She wondered, just for a moment, if someone like him could still exist in a world that often looked the other way, a quiet kindness. She thought to herself, maybe he's just one of the rare good ones left. In a cold world, maybe that's enough. It happened on a quiet Thursday evening. Linda returned to the storage room late after her shift, her body aching, her heart heavy. She turned the knob and stepped inside, but something was different. The bulb overhead, which had been dead for months, flickered to life. Soft golden light filled the cramped space. Her eyes widened. The corners no longer felt so dark. Her mattress, her daughter's photo, everything looked warmer, less forgotten. On the floor near the door, she saw a folded note. She picked it up and read, "Light is something you should have." There was no signature, but she knew who it was from. Linda stood there silently, holding the note to her chest. Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. Not a forced smile, not the kind she gave to guests or co-workers. A real one. In the days that followed, Michael, still Mike to everyone, began lingering after shifts. They'd sit on overturned crates in the break room, sipping chamomile tea from paper cups. During one of those late-night talks, with only the hum of the vending machine to fill the silence, Linda finally spoke from somewhere deep inside. "Do you ever feel like no matter how much you give, it's never enough to protect the people you love?" Michael paused. The fluorescent lights flickered above them. "Yes," he said. "I used to think love made people weak, that it blurred your judgment." He turned the cup in his hands. "But now I think love is what makes people strong enough to keep going, when nothing else would." Linda stared at her tea. No one had ever said it like that. That night she opened up in a way she never had before. Not just pieces, not fragments, but the truth. She told him about pawning her engagement ring to afford medication, skipping meals so Judy could eat, nights spent outside emergency rooms, praying they'd accept her daughter without upfront payment. I was angry, she confessed, her voice trembling, not just at life, but at myself, for never being enough. Michael reached out and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You are more than enough," he said. "And the light, it's coming, I promise." She didn't reply, but her tears didn't burn like before. What Linda didn't know was that the next morning Michael made a quiet phone call. Not as Mike, as Michael Reeve. He contacted the Children's Hospital, asked for billing, and paid the deposit for Judy's surgery. No fanfare, no hotel affiliation, just a message: tell the mother the surgery is confirmed. 3 days later, Linda stood at the hospital front desk, confusion clouding her face. I was calling to say I'm still trying to get the money," she told the nurse. "I know I'm past the deadline, but if I could just get a little more time." The nurse offered a soft smile. "Ms. Reynolds, the payment was made." "The surgery is scheduled." Linda froze. The words took time to register, but when they did, her knees nearly buckled. She left the hospital in a daze, then burst into a run, the air around her electric with joy. Hope surged in her chest like sunlight cracking through a storm. Back at the hotel, she found Michael finishing a routine task near the service elevator. She ran to him. "They're doing it," she breathed. "The hospital said someone paid. Judy's going to get her surgery." Her voice broke, her lips trembled, but her eyes shone. "I don't know who," she began, then stopped. She looked at him. And though he didn't say a word, something in his gaze answered everything. She covered her mouth, trying to hold back the sob that escaped. For the first time in years, her tears fell not from sorrow, but from joy. Relief, gratitude, hope. Michael stepped closer, reached out, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. No speeches, no big reveal, just a quiet moment between two people who had carried too much for too long, and, at last, let each other share the weight. It started with a whisper. A guest's necklace had gone missing from room 311, an expensive one, and somehow, within hours, suspicion had already found its way to Linda. She heard the rumor before she even finished her shift. Whispers by the staff lockers, side glances in the hallway, hushed voices falling silent the moment she stepped into the break room. Then came the summons. She stood quietly in the manager's office as he spoke in a tone too casual for the weight of his words. "We received a complaint, a missing item. The guest claims it was there before housekeeping arrived and gone after." Linda's mouth opened slightly, her heart pounding in her ears. "I would never," she said, but even to her own ears, it sounded too soft. No one came to her defense. Not the supervisors, not the co-workers she had helped. No one offered to vouch for her. Because once someone like Linda was accused, truth did not matter. She had no shield, no power, no voice. Later that evening, after being asked to take administrative leave pending further investigation, she returned to her storage room, packed her few belongings into her suitcase, and sat silently beside the mattress. She did not cry. She just stared at Judy's picture, whispering, "We were so close, sweetheart, so close." The door creaked open. Linda looked up. It was Mike. Only his expression was different this time. He looked calm, but beneath it, something simmered. He said nothing as he turned and walked past her, straight toward the manager's office. She did not follow. But moments later, the entire hallway seemed to pause as voices rose, too loud to ignore. "You cannot just storm in here," the manager said, startled. "I can," Michael replied firmly, pulling off the name badge clipped to his uniform. "Because you have no idea who I am." Silence. Then, calmly, but with unmistakable authority, he continued, "If Linda Reynolds is terminated over this baseless accusation, I will be resigning. Effective immediately. The manager's eyes widened. Mike? No, Michael. Michael Reeve. The name hit the room like thunder. And if she walks out of this building in disgrace, he added, stepping closer, so will I. Along with every headline from every major outlet that wants to know why your top-performing staff was scapegoated without proof. There was no rebuttal, no protest, only a long, awkward pause and a slow nod. Linda was quietly reinstated. Her name cleared, though the truth behind the setup would never officially be confirmed. Just rumors, buried as quickly as they were spread. But as she stood outside the manager's office, watching Michael walk back toward the service elevator without even looking her way, a new kind of unease grew inside her. It was not the accusations that haunted her. It was the way he had come to her rescue, so decisively, so fiercely, so personally. The man she had believed to be just a kind soul in a Navy uniform had threatened to give up his job for her. And that made no sense. Who would do that, unless he was not who he said he was? Later that night, as she sat alone, folding her uniform back into the shelf, a question she had pushed away for weeks now returned with sharp clarity. Who are you, Mike? And more urgently, why are you doing this for me? The trust that had slowly taken root now trembled, caught between gratitude and suspicion. And Linda once again found herself facing the most painful question of all. What if I was never more than a story to him, just another person to save? Because sometimes even kindness, when unexplained, felt too much like pity. It happened in the lobby. Linda was coming off a long shift, heading toward the staff exit with her cleaning cart, when she heard the voice. A well-dressed man, clearly a VIP guest, strode past the front desk and extended his hand toward someone she could not yet see. "Mr. Reeve," the man said warmly, "an honor to finally meet you in person. Your leadership has done wonders for the hospitality industry." Linda froze, her hand still gripped the cart handle, but her entire body went still. Then she saw him. Mike, only he was no longer in uniform. He stood tall in a tailored Navy suit, polished shoes, and the kind of confidence that came not from pretending, but from owning a room without even trying. Her breath caught. Michael Reeve. He caught sight of her too, their eyes locked just for a second, but it was enough. Later, she would not remember how she got back to the service hallway, only the ringing in her ears and the echo of that name. Mr. Reeve. She waited until the shift ended. Then she climbed the stairs to the storage room one last time. She sat on the mattress, staring at the small photo of Judy on the wall. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. He saw everything. All of it. From the very beginning. The thought curled inside her chest, hot and cold at once. Not just that he had been lying, but that he had watched her suffer, had known the whole time, and still said nothing. Suddenly everything, his silence, his generosity, his protection, felt tainted. Was it kindness? Or was it pity? She could not tell, and that was what hurt most. Linda requested a leave of absence the next morning, citing personal reasons. No one asked questions. She packed her things in a small duffel and left without telling anyone, not even Michael. By the time she arrived at the children's hospital, Judy was already in pre-operative evaluation. Linda stayed by her side, brushing her daughter's hair, humming lullabies, whispering promises. In the stillness of the hospital room, Linda sat by the window, her hands clasped in her lap, her eyes staring into the gray light outside. "I do not need anyone's charity," she murmured, almost like a prayer. "As long as you live, Judy, I will find a way. I will start over. I will build everything again from nothing, if I have to." That night, just before bedtime, Judy looked up from her pillow with a sleepy smile. "Mommy," she said. "That nice man came to see me." Linda blinked. "What man?" "The one with the kind eyes," Judy answered. "He brought me a bear and told me a story." About a princess who got a new heart and then went to the park with her mommy. Linda stared. Judy continued, "He said when I get better he'll take me to the park too. He even made the bear talk in funny voices." Tears welled in Linda's eyes. She gripped the edge of the blanket. She had not told Michael where they were. She had not told anyone where they were. And still, he came. He did not announce it. He did not use it as leverage. He just came, quietly, to be near the little girl whose life he had helped save. Linda turned away from her daughter so Judy would not see her crying. She pressed her hand to her mouth and let the tears fall. She was not angry anymore. She was overwhelmed and terrified, because a man like Michael did not belong in her world. And she, flawed, broke, patched together with survival and pride, could not imagine belonging in his. Even kindness, when too pure, too unexpected, could feel like a mirror to everything she was not. She wiped her cheeks and whispered, "He should not love someone like me." But deep down she feared something even more dangerous. What if he already did? The hospital corridor was quiet, save for the occasional murmur of nurses and the soft beeping of machines from distant rooms. Linda sat alone on the cold bench outside the surgical wing, her hands clenched together, her eyes locked on the red-lit sign above the operating room. Cardiac surgery in progress. Inside, Judy was fighting, and there was nothing Linda could do but wait. Her thoughts were spiraling, images of Judy's first laugh, her first steps, the nights she clutched her chest in pain, all looping in her mind like a silent film. Then came the sound of footsteps. She looked up. Michael stood before her, holding a small paper bag in one hand and a teddy bear with a stitched red heart in the other. He said nothing at first. He simply set the items gently on the table beside her. "I brought some soup," he said softly, "and this bear. Judy liked the one she had before, thought she might want another." Linda stared at him, overwhelmed by his presence. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know," he said, then after a pause added, "But I am." He moved to sit beside her. The silence stretched between them like a fragile thread. After a long moment, he spoke again, this time quieter. "You do not have to be strong today, Linda. Not alone. I am here, if you will let me." His voice did not waver. There was no plea. Just quiet sincerity. Linda did not respond, but she did not move away either. Minutes passed, then an hour, and another. Outside the operating room, the hours were thick with waiting. Fear sat heavily in Linda's chest, but this time it was no longer unbearable. Because Michael stayed. When her hands began to tremble, he reached over and took one in his. She did not pull away. Instead, her head lowered and gently came to rest on his shoulder. She let her body lean into his warmth, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to stop carrying the weight alone. A single tear slipped from her eye, not born of fear, but of release. Michael did not speak. He just held her hand a little tighter, and still they waited. Then, at long last, the doors opened. A nurse stepped out, pulling down her mask. She looked tired but smiling. "The surgery was a success," she said. "Your daughter is stable. She is going to be okay." The words hit like sunlight after a storm. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her knees nearly gave out, but Michael caught her. She turned into his chest, sobbing silently, her whole body shaking. He said nothing, just held her. Later, when they were allowed inside, the sight of Judy lying in bed, her little chest rising and falling steadily beneath the blanket, felt like a miracle. Linda approached slowly, brushing the girl's hair back gently, tears still clinging to her lashes. Judy blinked, drowsy but aware. Her gaze shifted past her mother to Michael. Her lips curved into a small smile. Then, in the clear, innocent voice only a child could manage, she asked, "Mommy? Is that my daddy?" The room went still. Michael's eyes widened slightly, his lips parted, but no words came out. Linda stood frozen, unable to breathe. Judy reached out with her tiny hand and wrapped her fingers around Michael's. He looked down, and the warmth of her touch shattered something deep inside him. His chest rose with a breath he had not realized he was holding. His throat tightened, and then, quietly, tears rolled down his cheeks. Not because he had been caught, not from guilt or pressure, but from something else entirely. Love. Linda's voice finally broke through the silence, soft, shaking. He's someone very special, sweetheart. Judy smiled sleepily, her hand still resting in Michael's. And Michael, blinking through tears, nodded slowly. He looked at Linda with eyes full of something deeper than words could carry. "I'll stay," he said softly, "as long as you'll have me." The days that followed felt softer. Judy's recovery was slow but steady. Each morning her smile brightened, her cheeks flushed with color, and the light returned to her eyes. And Michael was there. He brought storybooks and stuffed animals, inventing voices for each character. He helped feed her when she was tired, and sat on the hospital floor for tea parties, wearing paper crowns Judy made for him. He laughed with her, waited with her, protected her like she had always been his. Linda saw it all, the way Judy reached for his hand without hesitation, the way she whispered good night with fingers curled in his. And for the first time in years, Linda did not feel alone. But with the warmth came an ache she couldn't ignore. One evening, after Judy had fallen asleep, Linda and Michael sat quietly in the hospital lounge. The low hum of machines and a distant clink of the coffee pot filled the silence. "You're too good, Michael," Linda said softly. He looked at her, puzzled. "Too kind, too wealthy, and I'm just a maid who sleeps in a linen closet," her voice cracked. "I don't want to be someone you feel sorry for. I don't want to be your project." She looked away, blinking back tears. "I'm scared you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve more. Someone easier, someone who fits into your world." Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for her hand. "Linda," he said gently, "you are not a burden, or a charity case, or something to fix." His voice was calm but full. "You and Judy, you're the family I never knew I needed. I don't do this out of pity. I do it because I see you. Every scar, every strength." Linda's breath caught. "I didn't come into your life because you needed saving," he continued. "I came because I needed something real. You reminded me what matters." Her tears slipped down, silent and steady. Michael reached up and brushed them away. That night something changed. Not a question anymore, not a possibility, but a quiet certainty. Weeks passed. When the doctors finally said Judy could go home, Linda packed slowly, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of realizing this chapter had truly come to a close. Outside the hospital, sunlight warmed Judy's face. She inhaled deeply, like it was her first real breath in years. Everything had changed, and so had they. Later, in a quiet city park, the three of them walked hand in hand. Judy ran ahead, arms wide, catching the breeze. Michael and Linda strolled behind, slower, watching her with matching smiles. "She's going to be unstoppable," he said. Linda nodded, her heart full. Then, with a soft laugh, she asked, "Why room 207? Michael looked at her, amused. "Room 207 used to be just another room," he said, "until you walked into it." He squeezed her hand. "That's when light came into my life." Linda looked away, her cheeks warm, her eyes glassy. He leaned in and whispered, "You were never just a maid to me. You were the light in my darkest place." If their life had been a film, the camera would have pulled back then, three silhouettes bathed in golden afternoon light. Judy skipping ahead, her tiny hand in each of theirs. Michael and Linda no longer broken, just whole, just home.